Welcome to the SCHEELS Outdoors Podcast, your source for information on hunting, fishing, and all of your outdoor passions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SCHEELS Outdoors Podcast. My name is Mike Anderson, and I will be your host for this segment. To start things off, I want to let you know of an upcoming event that we are really excited about, and that is our first ever virtual Ice Series event happening December 8th and 9th at 7 p.m. Central Time each night. This is a free virtual event where we will be joined by SCHEELS Pro Staff Jason Mitchell and Ice Team member Matt Johnson on the 8th, and then on the 9th we'll be joined again by Jason Mitchell and also fishing YouTuber Sam Sobey. There will be a ton of great information on ice fishing shared, along with a chance to win up to $5,000 in ice fishing gear from Clam. You won't want to miss this one. To register for this free event, head to scheels.com/ice series. We're coming to the end of November, and hopefully by this time you have filled a tag or two and have a little extra meat in the freezer. The next step is deciding what to do with that meat. There are plenty of meat lockers who can take care of it for you, but a lot of them today either don't have the capacity to take on additional work or have extended wait times for the finished product. You're often hit with a pretty hefty bill and have no guarantees that the meat you brought in is 100% yours. A great option nowadays is to just take care of it yourself. Food processing is becoming increasingly popular and is a great way to become more self-sufficient, guarantee you are putting your own meat on the table, and in the long run save money in the process. We have some great experts at each SCHEELS location when it comes to food processing who can answer any questions you may have and set you up with the right equipment, seasonings, spices, casings, or anything else you may need to process your own game. Today we're joined by Shane McGovern of the Des Moines SCHEELS store, who has over 20 years of experience with us in the food processing department and even more experience before joining us. Here's our conversation on food processing with Shane. We have Shane McGovern with us today from the Des Moines store. You might have seen Shane on some of our social posts or our YouTube videos talking about food processing. He made some great duck sausage. If you haven't checked that out yet, make sure to go to our YouTube page. How you doing today, Shane?
Wonderful. Beautiful morning in Iowa.
Perfect. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, first thing, I've been working for SCHEELS for 21 years, but I've been hunting for a long time. I grew up in Iowa hunting, mostly small game until I got older, and the deer population wasn't what it is today in Iowa 30 years ago. So I harvested my first deer when I was 16 and been hunting pretty religiously since. Since then, joined the military, got out of the military, came to work for SCHEELS, and did a lot of growing, got married, had a couple kids, and now I'm enjoying the outdoors with my family, wife and kids.
That's great. That Des Moines area is a perfect place for that. So how did you get started into food processing?
It's kind of a farm to table type thing for me and a reverence for the animal. I years ago, my first couple deer I had mostly processed by lockers, and I'd make my own jerky with the dehydrator or with the oven, but not much more. And I got some deer sticks made by a locker one time, and I had shot a deer with a bow, and I got the deer back after I got it processed, and the locker owner said, well, there might be a little crossover between deer and the grinder. And I bit into a stick, and there was literally a copper-jacketed chunk of lead in my stick, about as big around as a stick, and that was really the last push. And I had a several $100 locker bill that year, so I was like, I'm just going to buy a grinder, start buying a couple pieces a year and start getting into it. So,
okay. Yeah. So what equipment do you need to get initially started?
Yeah. The first deer I processed, I turned most of it into jerky, and all I really needed was a dehydrator and some seasoning mix. You can buy a pre-made seasoning mix, or there's lots of recipes on the web out there today. Which weren't out there. There wasn't the web 30 years ago when I started hunting whitetails or harvested my first whitetail. But I simply just made jerky in the dehydrator in the oven, and went from there. I started from there, and then I then I progressed into getting a grinder and a vacuum sealer and a smoker and a stuffer, and it almost becomes something that takes over. I almost like the meat processing side of it day better than I like the pursuit and all that side of it. Because the hunt only lasts so long. We only get a week depending on the season. Some seasons in Iowa 4 or 5 days, but processing can last the next 6 months. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can really go full circle. You shoot your deer and then process it, and then you get to enjoy it. So that's very cool.
I think processing your own deer too kind of has a reverence for it. You know what happened to that deer from the time it was standing there eating corn or beans or whatever. In Iowa, usually corn or beans. Mm-hmm. The time it was standing there till the time the deer made it to the plate for your friends and family or whoever else. That there was nothing that should cause any kind of issues or problems, and it should be the best quality product that you can put on the table.
Great. So for somebody getting into this food processing, what sort of time commitment can you expect?
Well, that all depends on what you want to do with it. It can be as short as processing the deer from the time you harvest it to putting it to table grade food. You can do that as short as an hour and a half to 4 hours. But really, if you're just wanting to make jerky, harvest it, slice it, put it on the dehydrator, and really it doesn't take much time at all to get started.
Perfect. So when you're doing your dehydrating, how do you know when it's completed?
Okay. Well, that's a common question. A lot of people ask that when they come in the store. There's some things that come into play with that. I highly suggest, and I brought a couple things. I got this jerky board. I hope you can see that, but it's just simply a jerky board, and it's not too expensive, and that gives you the ability to consistently cut the jerky the same thickness. My dehydrator takes 8 hours, about exactly 8 hours to dehydrate jerky, and so once you know how long it takes to get it to the consistency that you want, some people like it drier, some people like it wetter. Once you know how long it takes to get to that, you can take any dehydrator in the market and plug it into just a simple Christmas tree timer like this. Mine's set for 8 hours. If you can see on here, it's a little dirty from doing all kinds of jerky, but mine's set for 8 hours. I literally plug my dehydrator into this, load it up. I have 12 trays on it, go to work, and I come home and the whole house smells like jerky. Sometimes my wife likes that. Sometimes she doesn't. My kids love the jerky though. But the Christmas tree timer is a godsend for jerky. Then I get home, I put another batch on, I go to sleep, I get up in the morning, pull it off, and I do that. I'll do a 5-gallon bucket of jerky, and then I vacuum seal the jerky, and it keeps wonderfully in the freezer, and I mean for a long time. So,
yeah, that's a great pro tip there with the Christmas tree timer. Good time saver there. So when you're doing your jerky in the dehydrator, I assume you're doing press stuff and slice. Can you do those at the same time, or do those have to have like different dehydration times?
Yeah, for my dehydrator, they take a little different time. So I can do whole muscle meat cut at 3/16 of an inch, and I can do that in 8 hours. But the ground jerky usually takes a little less than that, 6.5. But each dehydrator is different. So what I always suggest to people is that first batch, monitor your dehydrator and monitor your time. So keep on checking on it and get it just to where you want it. Or maybe stop just a hair before you get it exactly the dryness you want it, and pull it up. It will continue to dry a little bit. And what I usually do is just leave a 5-gallon bucket with the lid off, nice and clean. I set the jerky in there with the lid off of it and let it sit out overnight. So any remaining moisture that's on it kind of comes off of it, but it will dry a little more once you pull it off.
Okay, good to know. So are there any other commonly asked questions you have in the jerky department of things?
A lot of times people ask questions when it comes to like the whole muscle meat. They ask, or with the whole muscle meat, they'll ask how do you do that? I simply steer them towards a jerky kit, and I steer them towards a jerky kit like this. This one's by High Mountain, but man, the directions in here are spot on if they just follow the directions. whole muscle meat, shake it on there like you would maybe salt on something really bland. And then if you're making, it also has a ground recipe in here. So if you take this and use the ground recipe, some things to keep in mind when you do the grind though, or when you grind the meat, I always add a little pork. Just straight venison will work and make great jerky, but a little bit of pork in there makes a little bit better jerky, like a pork butt, a Boston butt, or something like that. It just adds a little more fat. So that's what I normally do. The ground jerky, like I said, works really good for those front shoulder cuts, some of that stuff. I usually do the whole muscle jerky out of the back quarters, those big roasts and things like that.
Okay, perfect. So what sort of things do you like to make when you're not doing jerky? Like, what's your favorite thing to do?
I enjoy summer sausage, probably the best. And summer sausage, again, we sell kits. They're home runs. You can take a kit like High Mountain makes a kit. There's everything you need in this kit to make 30 pounds of jerky. And I assure you, if you follow the directions on that kit, it'll turn out perfect every time. And I usually take the simplest approach I can to things like that. So that jerky mix happens to be the jerky mix, or the sausage mix happens to be the same sausage mix that I use every time. And I love making that because the whole family gets involved. I have my oldest daughter, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a picture of her actually grinding. Her name is Lorraine. So she's actually grinding meat. So, and then here's another picture of her grinding meat. And then here's her little sister with the finished product. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that one is Claire. And
that is awesome.
And so what we do at Christmas time is, my wife's family especially, they really appreciate venison and walleye, but we take them all a box with venison, summer sausage, jerky, sticks. And my daughters get to present those boxes to the rest of the family. So it's kind of a big deal. And nobody misses Christmas because they know they're going to get the box.
Oh, that's awesome that you're getting the little ones involved and making it a whole family thing. So when you're doing your sausage and, things other than jerky, what sort of equipment do you need to get, besides the dehydrator? And, are there places where you want to make sure that you don't want to skimp?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the big story for all of us. We start off like when we were fishing with a Zebco 202 or an inexpensive reel, and we work our way up. I always suggest when we have a customer and looking at grinders that they at least start at the all metal models. And I can't remember exactly what model that is for LEM, but I have them start there because I know that they're not going to have as many problems with it clogging up and things like that. The price point ones where they start, they work, but the same as the KitchenAid mixer one, my wife, I got one of those for Christmas right when we first got married, and it literally smelled like I burned down the house with the KitchenAid mixer. I think I was getting a little too aggressive with the grinder on it. But yeah, I always suggest spending as much money as you feel comfortable because you will be happy with it. I have a 3/4 horse grinder. I started with a KitchenAid mixer, then went to LEM's price point one, went to a smaller metal one, and then I ended up with LEM's 3/4 horse grinder. And I brought the head in for my grinder. This is the head of my grinder. One of the things that people always ask, okay, so now I have the grinder. Oh, how do I grind, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, first of all, you need to be able to cut the chunks big enough to fit in the end of the grinder, right? Throat. And then the other thing is keep your meat as cold as you possibly can. It can even have some ice crystals in it. Sometimes I'll cut my meat and then I'll take it and I'll throw it back in the freezer until it's almost frozen solid. And then I'll run it through the grinder. One of the keys to getting a great grind is making sure the head of the grinder stays cold, it stays cool. It keeps the fats and the meat from emulsifying. So one of the things that I'll do is I'll spray this down with silicone spray, and maybe I don't have any in here, but LEM sells a food grade silicone spray, and it keeps it from clogging. I'll spray it down with that, and then I'll stick that whole head in the freezer until I'm ready to grind, and I'll pull that head out and I'll stick it on the grinder, and I'll start to grind, and I can grind 60 pounds of meat without having any problems with it starting to clog or try and jam up or any of that stuff.
Okay, great. So when you have your meat prepared through the grinder, whether you put it into casings or whatever, how do you determine the right temperature or how long you want to smoke things?
That's a good question. I've done all kinds of different ways over the years. Like I said, most of us crawl, walk, then run when it comes to meat processing, deer hunting, fishing, etc. So I started off with just doing it in the oven and using just one of those simple meat probes that you put into it, inexpensive thermometers. But I had to keep on opening the oven every time. Then I progressed to a smoker, and I was still using just one of those small analog thermometers you stick in there. And most recently, I got one of our what is it called, a fireboard. It has multi-channels, and instead of just, if I'm doing 30 pounds of summer sausage, instead of just being able to check the temperature in one of them, I can check the temperature in 3 of them at the same time. And so now I usually stop a hair before the recommended temperature because that meat will continue to rise. And the one thing you want to do with sticks or sausage is immediately when you get to that temperature, cold water bath it. Now, our friend Cameron was talking about doing it in his bathtub and what his wife thought about it with the summer sausage we made. But what that does is it sets the fat into the summer sausage. It lets that fat start to come back to a solid state from a liquid state, and it makes that nice marbling. And I guess you can kind of see it on this. This is some summer sausage we made. It's still a little frozen, but it gets that nice marbling look that you want in summer sausage.
Okay. So let's talk a little about preparation and sanitation. How do you make sure that your meat is sanitary to start and then properly preserved when you're completed with your task?
Man, that's a great question, and I am super careful because remember, we're taking this home to feed our family. My 2 girls love the jerky, love the sticks, love the summer sausage. So the first thing I do is, first of all, try to make it as ethical of a kill as I can. And I try, and very rarely have I ever shot a deer that's moving. And at that, I try to make as ethical of a kill as I can, or an ethical harvest as I can. And I try to get on that deer as quick as I can without bumping it, and get it field dressed and get it cooled down as quick as I can. Now, some of the earlier seasons, I've had to pack the body cavity full of ice and things like that to cool it down. Sometimes we'll even bone it out, or not bone it out, but take the quarters off and stick it in a cooler with some ice to cool that meat down quicker. Especially some of the seasons, like today in Iowa, it's supposed to be like 82. Now, only youth season's going on right now, but man, if you have a kid out there and you harvest a deer today, you're going to want to get it cooled down some. So that's one of the big things. And then the other thing is, before I do any meat prep, the vast majority is done in our kitchen. I clean the countertops all off very good. I use wood cutting boards. I prefer them. They tend to be naturally antibacterial. Wood has some naturally antibacterial characteristics. Clean the cutting boards and all that stuff up really good, and I do that before I touch anything. Even if I clean the grinder before I put it away, it gets cleaned again before I got it.
Okay, great information. So, do you have any hunting plans here so you can get some meat for the freezer?
Yeah, I hunt with 2 gentlemen who are my senior by a little bit, and quite frankly, they've taught me a bunch about making sausage and sticks and all kinds of different meat stuff. They make some pretty crazy stuff. So my hunting friends, Vern and Jerry, and we do early muzzleloader season every year, and normally the weather's pretty good. It's the 3rd week of October, and we usually do pretty fair down in southern Iowa. We usually harvest a few deer, so we get the opportunity to process some.
Yeah, word on the street is Iowa's okay for deer hunting.
Yeah, they've given me a whole new appreciation. I used to be all about chasing antlers and stuff, but man, every deer to them, being they're getting up there in age, is just a precious thing. They don't know when they're going to get another one. It could be next year. They've lost friends in the last year. So really, I'm just enjoying the hunt, whether it's a doe, whether it's a buck these days. It's a pretty cool thing to have that opportunity and to live in a country where we can do this,
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hear your favorite deer story.
Oh, geez. hopefully this one isn't too long. So I was a very energetic young man, and my father, Joe McGovern, crew chief and a door gunner from Vietnam, only hunted small game. So, and he was busy. He was in the military his whole life, 32 years. And I would beg him to take me hunt, beg him to take me fishing. And the only reason he went deer hunting was I wanted to go. And the first year, we shared a muzzle loader. And the deer population was nothing like it is today, 30, 40 years ago, right, in Iowa. So we struggled the first year. And I don't even remember if we got one the second. The third year, I finally saved up money doing chores and stuff like that. And I bought my own muzzleloader, and I shot a deer, and I shot it quartering away, and I got liver in one lung. It was a good shot, but man, I've never tracked a deer before, any of that stuff. My dad had never harvested a deer, just rabbits, squirrels, pheasants, that type of stuff. So we waited up, I don't know, a half hour, 45 minutes. He asked me how I thought the shot was. I thought it was pretty good. We started trailing this deer, and we couldn't find it. We had to leave it overnight. And the next morning, I didn't sleep a wink. I think I was maybe 15, 16. I didn't sleep a wink. And back in those days, you could only get a buck tag in the counties we were hunting, maybe the whole state of Iowa. My dad and I said, well, one of the articles I read or something said, go to the closest water source. So we walked to the river, and we're walking up and down the shore of the river, and I saw a hook sticking out on the shoreline. And it really wasn't that far away. It was like 175 yards, but you could have missed it so easily. All that was sticking out of the water was a hook. And it was quite certain when we got the deer out of the water and stuff like that, that expired very, very quickly, because that was another thing at night, being 14, 15, the last thing you want to do is be an animal sufferer. And you want to you want to have as much reverence for that animal as you can. So all night long, I worried about that suffering, and I worried about that. And we got the deer out. It was just a little, little something like this. But man, I'll tell you what, out of all and I've had the blessing to harvest literally hundreds of deer over my lifetime. That one was probably the most special by a long. Because what, as dads, sometimes we do things that we don't necessarily like to do, and most of the dads don't tell our kids that we're proud of them as much as we should and things like that. And I'll tell you what, when we finally harvest that deer, because it took a long time and a lot of work to do that, worked our way through it, I could just tell in my dad's eyes that it was something pretty special.
Mm-hmm. Great story. The easiest ones are never the most memorable.
Sometimes they are. I don't mind those nowadays either as I get a little older.
Yeah, very true. What is your absolute favorite thing to make?
Man, if you gave me one thing to make, it would probably be summer sausage, because it seems like everybody likes summer sausage. I've had people say my jerky's too sweet, my jerky's too hot, but summer sausage, it seems like, I don't know, maybe it's just because all our Midwest heritage, but everybody that I give a roll of summer sausage to seems good.
Perfect. Are there any other commonly asked questions that you get when you're helping people in the food processing department?
There are some things that I always just lean people towards with a grinder. One of them is a foot pedal. It's a pretty simple thing, and it's an accessory purchase, but man, you can control the grind right with your foot. So, and if you're going to stuff with your grinder, which I did for a long time, I suggest buying a stuffer if you can afford it. But if you're going to stuff with it, it's absolutely a must to have that foot pedal. That foot pedal, as soon as you let the pressure off on it, the grinder stops. So, and if you're grinding with kids, especially kids with little hands, my wife insisted on having a foot pedal. For some reason, she thinks they're going to get their little hands down in the grinder. So a foot pedal is a good thing. That food grade silicone spray is a good thing. Soy protein. Soy protein is used in all kinds of meat products. It's a binder. We sell it at SCHEELS. And soy protein works great for keeping the moisture in your meat products, especially brats, sticks, any kind of sausage, German sausage, Italian sausage, summer sausage. I always suggest that a customer takes that soy protein. And on the back, the directions are simple. It tells you how much to add per pound of meat. And I'll tell you what, since I started using that, my sausage and stuff like that turned out a lot better. The other thing that I just make people aware of, with sticks, sometimes it helps to add just a little citric acid. It gives it that little snap or that little pop. We saw that citric acid too. I always tell people just to experiment. I literally, before I go and make 25 pounds or 30 pounds or 50 pounds, and we were talking about this before, but I'll make a patty with the grind. I'll grind the meat once, take a little chunk of it, mix some seasoning with it, take the cast iron skillet, put it on the stove, a little butter, a little oil, and throw that patty on there and cook it up. Now, the flavor's not going to be the exact same because sometimes it takes 24 hours for the flavor to set, but you're going to get a great idea of what that final product's going to turn out.
Yeah, like, you don't have the smoking process done and all the seasoning hasn't set, but it's a great way where, you're getting started out and you want to get a little taste test and make sure that you don't wreck a whole 25, 30 pound batch. So great advice on that one.
If there's one tip I can give somebody, that's one of the best tips I've learned. I literally, when I was early in my processing days, I hunted with a bunch of guys shotgun season in Iowa, which was kind of crazy if you've ever been on shotgun season. But they literally would set up a Mr. Buddy heater, one of the cookers, and flip it over and throw a cast iron skillet on it. And they would make patties with some of the seasonings, and you'd try it.
Oh, that's awesome. And everything's better out of a cast iron skillet.
It is. I'm here to tell you, they might not be as fun to clean as Teflon, but man, it tastes better. Just a little quick marinade for everybody. If you're looking for something, a simple recipe for a marinade for backstrops, elk, deer, mule deer, whatever. Dole, pineapple juice, small can like that. Dump it in a gallon Ziploc freezer bag. A couple chunks of backstrap. A quarter cup of soy sauce. A tablespoon of Lawry seasoning salt or the seasoning salt of your choice. I know that meat church is one of my favorites to use in there. So meat church, and then a tablespoon of meat church and a tablespoon of minced garlic, and let it sit for 6 hours, 8 hours, no longer than overnight. And slice that into butterflies, a little butter in the cast iron skillet and those back straps. I'll tell you what, I got one friend that said he won't eat deer unless it's summer sausage, sticks, or jerky. And I made him. I literally almost had to grab him by the neck and force him to eat it. I looked back while I was still cooking, and the whole plate was gone. So,
awesome.
So every year for deer season, when we harvest our first deer, we take the inside backstrap thing. It makes me do that every year.
Ooh, perfect. So, man, that's a lot of awesome information on food processing. So, Shane, thank you so much for your time. If you're around the Des Moines store, make sure to stop into the food processing department and talk to Shane. If you've got any other questions, feel free to put them in the comments below or just reach out to us on social media at SCHEELS Outdoors. Shane, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
All right.
Have a great this year, friends.
Have a good one, and good luck this season.
You too.
You just heard our conversation with Shane McGovern of the Des Moines store on food processing. He offered quite a few tips and tricks that he's developed through the years of honing his craft, and it has me excited to do a little food processing of my own this year. If you'd like additional information on food processing, our SCHEELS Outdoors YouTube page is an excellent resource. We have a playlist created for food processing, and you can find a link to those videos in the description of this podcast on your listening platform. Also, if you're listening to this segment within a few days of when it's been published and are looking to save on any food processing items, we're launching our holiday sales event on Sunday, November 22nd, and it'll run through Cyber Monday, which is the 30th of November this year. During this event, you will find savings on vacuum sealers, jerky guns, dehydrators, grinders, stuffers, slicers, even thermometers to ensure you get that perfect temperature while smoking. It's also a great time to get that holiday shopping done as we have deals going on throughout the store. To find this information, just head to the homepage of SCHEELS.com. If you enjoyed this segment, please hit that follow button on the listening platform you chose today. We launch a new segment every Friday. And with that, we'd like to thank you for listening and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the SCHEELS Outdoors Podcast. Stay tuned for future segments and visit our social media pages, SCHEELS Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates.